Aitah for telling my husband I will leave him if he shares my assault with our daughter as a warning. When I 35F overheard my husband 38 meters telling his brother that he was planning to have a serious talk with our 13-year-old daughter about what happened to me, I felt my stomach drop. He said it so casually, like it was a story, a lesson, but to me, it's not a lesson. It's a wound that never really closed. He doesn't know what it's like to wake up in the middle of the night and smell the same cologne, to hear the same footsteps in your head, to live in a body that remembers things your brain tries to forget. I had told him about my assault once, early in our marriage, when I thought trust meant total honesty. I cried through it. He held me. He said all the right things, that he loved me, that I was strong, that it wasn't my fault. And I believed him. Until last week, we were cleaning up after dinner, our daughter in her room, music playing faintly through her headphones. He was washing dishes and I was drying them. We were talking about how fast she was growing up, about high school, about boys. He sighed and said, I think it's time she understands what can happen if she's not careful. I frowned. What do you mean, what can happen? He looked at me with that heavy, serious look, the one he uses when has already decided something. I mean, he said, she should know about what you went through. Maybe if she hears it from you, it'll really get through to her. She needs to know the world isn't safe. The plate in my hand slipped. It didn't shatter, but it cracked, a jagged line right down the center, just like I felt in that moment. I took a breath and said, you can't do that. You can't tell her. That's my story, not yours to use. He didn't raise his voice, but his tone was firm, paternal, condescending, protective in the worst possible way. It's not about you, he said. It's about keeping her safe. In not trying to shame you, I don't want her to be named. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw the cracked plate at the wall. Instead, I just said, if you tell her, if you ever share what happened to me, I'll leave. The look on his face, he thought I was bluffing. For the next few days, we barely spoke. He kept saying things like, you're overreacting, and she's our daughter, she deserves to know the truth. But to me, this wasn't about truth. It was about consent. My consent. What he called the truth wasn't a story that belonged to him. It was something ripped out of me years ago, and now he was threatening to take it again. This time with my daughter as the audience. When I told my therapist, she looked at me with that quiet, understanding expression I both hate and need. She said, it sounds like you're being re-traumatized by his need to control the narrative. And that's exactly what it was. A control. Wrapped in good intentions, maybe, but still control. A few nights ago, I woke up around 2 a.m. and saw his phone light up. Curiosity, or maybe paranoia, got the better of me. I checked it. There was a message to his sister. I don't know how to make her see reason. I just want daughter to understand the dangers. Maybe I should tell her myself. I felt like my chest was collapsing. I didn't confront him that night. I couldn't. I just went to the couch and sat there in the dark, hugging my knees, listening to the clock tick. The next morning, I told him flat out, if you tell her, I will pack my things and go. You don't get to use my pain as a lesson. He stared at me for a long time, his jaw tight. Then he said something I'll never forget. You're choosing shame over safety. You'd rather she walk blind into the world than learn from what happened to you. That's when I realized he didn't understand me at all. He didn't understand trauma or boundaries, or that being a victim didn't make me a teaching tool. It's been 2 weeks since that conversation. We still live under the same roof, but everything feels cold. The silence between us is sharp enough to cut through bone. Sometimes I catch him looking at our daughter with this troubled, worried expression, like she's some fragile thing he has to protect from invisible monsters. And maybe that's part of it. Maybe he is afraid. Maybe he thinks he's doing the right thing. But what I can't get past is this. He's willing to betray me to protect her. And the irony is that betrayal, that violation, feels almost the same as the first one. Now I'm wondering if I've gone too far. My mother says I should be grateful I married a man who cares this much, that I shouldn't punish him for wanting to protect his daughter. My therapist says I'm right to hold my boundary, but the house feels heavy. He doesn't touch me anymore. Our conversations are stiff. Every meal feels like we're eating around a ghost, and that ghost is my past. So aitah for telling my husband I'll leave him if he shares my assault with our daughter, because part of me wonders if he's right, if my silence is selfish, and another part of me knows that if he ever opens his mouth, I'll never be able to look at him the same way again. Continuation. When he told her anyway, it happened on a Sunday afternoon. The kind of quiet day that feels almost too normal to hold something so destructive. Our daughter, Lily, had been sitting at the kitchen table doing homework. I was upstairs, folding laundry, half listening to the hum of the washing machine and the faint clatter of dishes below. I remember thinking, for the first time in weeks, that things seemed calm. Then I heard my husband's voice, low, steady, serious. "Lily, can I talk to you about something important?" My heart stopped. Something in his tone made the air go thin. I froze, listening. My hands clutched a towel that still smelled faintly of detergent. "When I was your age," he started, "I didn't really understand how dangerous the world could be for girls. Your mom's been through something I think you're old enough to know." I dropped the towel. Every step down the hallway felt like walking toward an explosion I couldn't stop. When I reached the stairs, I could hear Lily's small, confused voice, "What do you mean?" And then, "Your mom was hurt by someone once, a long time ago. I'm telling you this because I don't want you to ever stop." My voice came out sharper than I expected. They both turned. Lily's eyes went wide. She looked scared, like she'd just been caught doing something wrong. But I wasn't angry at her. I was angry at him. I walked straight to him. My pulse was hammering so hard it made my ears ring. "How dare you?" I whispered. He opened his mouth, tried to say something, but I cut him off. "You promised." "I told you not to. I told you what this would do to me." Lily looked between us, pale, clutching her pencil like it was an anchor. "Mom, what's going on?" And that broke me, because my daughter's innocence was now tangled in something that should have never touched her. I turned to him again. "You didn't protect her," I said. "You just took something that wasn't yours." He looked wounded, defensive. "I was protecting her. She deserves to know what kind of world she's living in." I felt tears burn behind my eyes. By betraying me, by turning my trauma into a bedtime story. "She is our daughter," he shot back. "And she has the right to learn from what happened to you." I couldn't even respond, because in that moment I realized he truly believed that what he did was good, that the end justified the means, and that made it so much worse. Lily ran upstairs crying. The house fell into a kind of silence that felt heavy, like something sacred had just been broken. I sat down at the table, shaking. He stood by the counter, hands in his hair, pacing. After a long time, he said quietly, "You're overreacting." I laughed, a hollow, exhausted sound. "You really think this is about overreacting?" He turned to me, eyes red. "You're so focused on your pain that you can't see what I'm trying to do for her. Do you want her to end up? Don't you dare finish that sentence." He stopped, and for a moment I saw fear flicker in his face. Not of me, but of what had done. But then pride, or ego, took over again. He crossed his arms and said, "I'm not going to apologize for caring about our daughter's safety." That night, I slept in Lily's room. She didn't ask many questions, just curled up next to me, clutching my arm. At one point, she whispered, "Dad said someone hurt you, is that true?" I wanted to tell her everything. I wanted to explain it properly. The truth, not the horror. But she was still a child. So I just said softly, "Yes, baby. But that was a long time ago. I'm okay now." She nodded. Then she said something you'll never forget. "I wish he didn't tell me." It made me scared. And that was it. That one sentence confirmed everything I already knew. This wasn't protection. It was projection. He wanted to feel in control of her world because he couldn't control mine. The next morning, I packed a bag. When he came downstairs and saw it by the door, his face went blank. "You're leaving?" he said, voice trembling. "Yes," I said simply. "For how long?" "I don't know." He looked at me like he was searching for the right argument, something logical, moral, persuasive. But I wasn't interested in logic anymore. I'd lived along in that cage, where my trauma was something people discussed instead of something I survived. Finally, he said, "You're breaking this family apart over a conversation." "No," I said. "You broke it when you used me as an example." I stayed at my sister's for a week. Lily stayed with me part of the time, alternating between parents. Every time she went back to him, she came home quieter, more guarded, like she didn't know which of us to believe. He sent me messages, long ones, apologies, then justifications, then apologies again. I was scared, okay? I thought I was doing the right thing. "You're making me out to be a monster when all I did was care." But care doesn't look like control, and love doesn't look like betrayal. A month later, we met with a mediator. He tried to explain himself again, but all I could hear was my story. Something sacred, private, being taken out of my hands. He said, I was trying to protect both of you. I said, you ended up hurting both of us instead. He went quiet after that. By the end of the meeting, I told him I needed space. Real space. If he wanted to rebuild trust, it wouldn't be through explanations. It would be through silence, through respecting the things he doesn't understand. It's been 6 months. We're not officially separated, but we live apart. Lily is adjusting. She's in therapy now too. Sometimes I still catch myself missing him. The version of him I thought I had, the one who listened, who held me when I couldn't breathe. But that version disappeared the moment he decided that my pain was something to be shared. For the greater good. Maybe he truly believed he was doing the right thing. But intent doesn't erase impact. And sometimes the hardest part of surviving isn't what happened to you. It's realizing the people who love you most can still hurt you in ways that feel exactly the same. Part 3. When my story stopped belonging to me. It's strange how betrayal doesn't always come with shouting or slam doors. Sometimes it arrives quietly, as a link someone sends you. One morning, about 4 months after I moved out, I was making coffee when my phone buzzed with a text from a friend I hadn't spoken to in years. Hey, did you know about this? Attached was a link, an online parenting magazine. Headline: How I used my wife's experience to teach my daughter about safety. My hands went cold. I clicked it, even though every part of me screamed not to. It was him. My husband, or I guess my estranged husband, had written a full-length article. It wasn't graphic, not exactly. He didn't name names. He didn't say rape, but he wrote enough. Enough for anyone who knew us, family, friends, colleagues, to recognize the story. When my wife was younger, something terrible happened to her, he wrote. She's a survivor. And though she may not agree with my choice, I believe parents must use real stories, not hypotheticals, to teach their children how dangerous the world can be. He called it a story of love and courage. He called it our journey. But it wasn't ours. It was mine. And reading it felt like watching someone break into your house, rearrange your furniture, and then tell you it looks better that way. By the time I reached the end of the article, my stomach hurt so badly I could barely breathe. Had written about how I struggled with shame, about how forgiveness was a process. He even quoted himself, the same words had used that day in the kitchen, the day he told Lily, our daughter deserves to know the truth. At the bottom of the page, there was a smiling picture of him and Lily at a par. Caption: Teaching safety through honesty. I felt like I was going to vomit. I didn't call him. I didn't yell. I just sat there on the kitchen floor with my phone in my hand, rereading every sentence until the words blurred. Because now it wasn't just betrayal. It was exposure. He had taken the last private part of me and handed it to strangers wrapped in a moral lesson. I called my therapist. She didn't sound surprised. She said quietly, has trying to rewrite the narrative, to make meaning out of something he can't fix. But meaning built on violation isn't healing. It's theft. The next day, people started reaching out. Old co-workers, distant relatives. Everyone had thoughts. Some said, wow, what a brave family. Others said, that's so invasive. Are you okay? And one message, one I still remember, came from my mother. Maybe now people will understand what you went through. Maybe it's good that he shared it. That sentence broke something in me I didn't even know was left to break. Because to everyone else, my pain was a story. Something noble, inspirational. To me, it was still a scar that burned when touched. I finally texted him, you had no right. He replied within minutes. It's anonymous. No one will know it's you. I did it to help people, to raise awareness. Then another. You always hide from what happened. Maybe this will finally help you heal. That one made my hands shake. He still didn't understand. He never had. To him, telling my story was a kindness, a public service. To me, it was a violation that echoed the first one. The same helplessness, the same loss of control. I tried to ignore it, but it didn't stop. The article gained traction. He was invited on a podcast to talk about parental honesty and trauma awareness. And he went. When I listened to that podcast, sitting alone in my car in a grocery store parking lot, I realized he was speaking for me, using my pain as his proof of love and morality. He said things like, my wife's experience changed me as a man. We've worked through it together. Our daughter knows she can talk to us about anything. That us hit like a knife. There was no us anymore. I called my lawyer the next day. I told her everything. She said there wasn't much I could do. He didn't use your name and he didn't include identifiable details, she said gently. Morally, Yes, it's wrong. Legally, it's complicated. Complicated. That word haunted me, because what had done wasn't complicated to me. It was clear as glass. He had stolen my voice and wrapped it in righteousness. He had turned my silence into his platform. A week later, Lily came home from school quieter than usual. I asked if something happened. She looked at me and said, "Somebody's mom showed me an article. She said my dad wrote it. Is it about you?" I didn't know what to say. I wanted to lie, to protect her, but I'd already seen what lies did. So I nodded. Her eyes filled with tears. "Mom, I didn't want him to tell anyone. I told him not to." That broke me completely, because even she, at 13, understood something he never could, that protecting someone doesn't mean owning their story. That night, I wrote him an email. No anger, no theatrics, just finality. I am filing for divorce. What you did was not love. It was erasure. You didn't protect me or Lily. You protected your image of yourself, the hero in a story that was never yours to tell. He never replied. But 2 weeks later, the article was quietly taken down. No apology, no statement, just gone. Now, a year later, I still wake up sometimes and check to make sure the page is gone. But the internet never forgets. Screenshots exist, the wand exists, people still ask questions. Some mean well, some don't. Lily's in therapy, and she's strong. Stronger than either of us deserved her to be. As for him, I heard has working with some non-profit now, doing awareness talks. I don't go near it. I don't need to, because I've learned something about people like him. They believe that good intentions wash away harm. But harm doesn't care about intent. It lingers, it stains, and sometimes the cruelest kind of betrayal doesn't come from your enemies. It comes from the person who loves you enough to turn your pain into their message.